Global headlines: A world in flux. Top 15 stories for January 17, 2026 by Juba Global News Network, jubaglobal.com. And I am Jasmine. The world enters the third week of 2026 amid cascading crises, bold diplomatic gambles, and shifting power balances that are redefining international relations in real time, from violent repression in Iran to a high-stakes U.S.-backed transition in Venezuela, from fragile progress in Gaza to renewed Arctic competition over Greenland. Today's top stories reveal a planet grappling simultaneously with authoritarian crackdowns, post-conflict reconstruction, resource rivalries, and the specter of great power confrontation. Here is today's definitive roundup of the 15 most consequential global developments. 1. Iran returns to uneasy calm after violent protest crackdown. 9 Another weeks of nationwide demonstrations that evolved from economic despair into calls for regime change. Iran's streets have fallen quiet under massive security deployment. Thousands are believed dead, tens of thousands arrested, and a week-long internet blackout has severely limited information flow. President Trump first threatened intervention, then praised Tehran for reportedly canceling mass executions of over 800 detainees, while a senior cleric demanded death penalties and issued direct threats against the United States. 2. Trump administration advances post-Maduro transition in Venezuela, following the dramatic U.S. capture and extradition of Nicolas Maduro. Opposition leader Maria Corina Machado presented her Nobel Peace Prize medal to President Trump at the White House in a symbolic gesture. Interim leader Delcy Rodriguez has pledged prisoner releases, open Venezuela's oil sector to U.S. investment, and begun accepting deported migrants, marking the most significant realignment in U.S.-Venezuela relations in decades. 3. Gaza ceasefire moves to Phase 2. Wars. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff confirmed the launch of Phase 2 of President Trump's 20-point Gaza plan. A new 15-member Palestinian technocratic committee will assume daily governance. Hamas faces full disarmament demands, and large-scale reconstruction of homes, hospitals, and schools is set to begin, though deep mistrust, ongoing violations, and slow formation of an international stabilization force continue to cloud prospects. 4. U.S.-Iran tensions escalate over protests. President Trump's warnings of military intervention if Iran violently suppressed demonstrations gave way to praise after reported cancellation of mass hangings. Yet hardline voices inside Iran remain unyielding, with a senior cleric calling for executions and labeling protesters Trump's soldiers. The delicate balance raises questions about whether back-channel diplomacy has produced a genuine pause or merely delayed escalation. 5. Greenland exploration and sovereignty disputes intensify. President Trump has threatened 100% tariffs on Denmark and uncooperative European nations as Germany, France, Norway, Sweden, and China intensify scientific and reconnaissance missions on Greenland. The scramble for rare earth minerals, Arctic shipping routes, prize-seeking routes, and strategic positioning has produced sharp disagreements between Washington and Copenhagen, with Denmark insisting Greenland remains firmly under its sovereignty. 6. Canada breaks with U.S. on China trade. Prime Minister Mark Carney announced Canada is eliminating its 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles in exchange for Beijing lowering tariffs on Canadian agricultural products, signaling a strategic pivot toward deeper economic ties with China despite ongoing U.S. pressure. 7. South Korean court sentences former President Yoon Suk-yeol in the first major verdict from multiple trials stemming from his 2024 martial law declaration. Former President Yoon Suk-yeol received a 5-year prison sentence, deepening South Korea's political polarization. 8. Myanmar faces genocide allegations at ICJ. Landmark hearings continue at the International Court of Justice in the Gambia's case accusing Myanmar's military of genocide against the Rohingya in 2017, Myanmar denies the charges as the world watches one of the most significant accountability processes. Proceedings in recent history. 9. Trump offers mediation in Egypt-Ethiopia-Nile dispute. President Trump proposed direct U.S. mediation in the long-running conflict over Nile River water rights between Egypt and Ethiopia, injecting American influence into one of Africa's most volatile resource disputes. 10. Syria grants citizenship and language rights to Kurds. President Ahmed al-Shara issued a decree restoring citizenship to many Kurds and recognizing Kurdish language rights for the first time, an important symbolic and practical step in Syria's fragile post-Assad transition. 11. Ukraine poll shows majority oppose territorial concessions. More than half of Ukrainians reject any withdrawal of forces in Donetsk, even for security guarantees, as Russia-Ukraine peace talks remain stalled, with Moscow blaming Kyiv for delays. 12. Global markets, tech and AI uncertainty persists. The World Economic Forum's latest outlook highlights persistent uncertainty in technology and AI-related equities despite strong equity fund inflows, as investors weigh geopolitical risks against innovation potential. 13. Pakistan expands military footprint in Arab world. Backed by deepening ties with China, Pakistan is increasing its military presence across the Arab world, potentially reshaping power dynamics in South and West Asia and raising concerns in New Delhi. 14. UN Biodiversity Treaty takes effect. The landmark global agreement officially entered into force, committing signatories to protect 30% of the world's oceans by 2030 amid accelerating biodiversity loss. 15. Davos preparations highlight absent spirit of dialogue as the World Economic Forum annual meeting approaches. January 19 to 23, global leaders and analysts note a marked decline in international cooperation and trust amid ongoing geopolitical fractures. Taken together, these stories paint a picture of a world where old authoritarian regimes fight for survival, new transitional governments navigate great power patronage, frozen conflicts inch toward uneasy stabilization, and the race for Arctic resources and critical minerals accelerates under the pressure of climate change. The coming days and weeks will test whether diplomacy, coercion, or sheer economic leverage will define the trajectory of 2026. For in-depth reporting, analysis, and continuing updates on all of these developing stories, visit JubaGlobal.com. Stay informed. Stay ahead. Juba Global News Network. Museveni secures seventh term in Uganda's 2026 election amid fraud allegations. And protests by Juba Global News Network. JubaGlobal.com. Juba, South Sudan, January 17, 2026. In a development that has solidified his status as one of Africa's longest-serving leaders, Ugandan President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni has been declared the winner of the 2026 presidential election, extending his rule into a seventh term and pushing his total time in power beyond 4 decades. The Electoral Commission announced the results on Saturday, stating that Museveni is representing the National Resistance Movement, NRM, garnered 71.65% of the vote, equivalent to approximately 7.94 million ballots. His main rival, Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, popularly known as Bobi Wine of the National Unity Platform, NUP, secured 24.72%, or about 2.74 million votes. This victory comes amid widespread allegations of electoral fraud, voter suppression, and state-sponsored violence, casting a shadow over the democratic process in the East African nation. Uganda's general elections, held on January 15, 2026, were marked by high tensions, an internet blackout imposed by the government, and reports of opposition crackdowns. With a voter turnout of around 52.5%, the polls saw 11.09 million valid votes cast out of 21.65 million registered voters. Electoral Commission Chairperson Simon Byabakama declared Museveni the winner in a televised address from Kampala, emphasizing that the incumbent had surpassed the 50% threshold required for a first-round victory, having obtained the highest number of votes in the election, and with votes cast in his favor exceeding 50% of the valid votes. The Commission hereby declares the elected president, Tibuhaburwa Kaguta Museveni. Byabakama stated, "A legacy of longevity, Museveni's path to power. Yoweri Museveni, now 81 years old, first seized power in 1980 from 6 after leading a guerrilla rebellion that ousted President Milton Obote, initially hailed as a liberator who brought stability to a country ravaged by civil war and dictatorship under Idi Amin. Museveni promised democratic reforms and economic revival. Over the years, his administration has overseen significant growth, with Uganda's GDP multiplying tenfold since the 1980s, driven by sectors like agriculture, oil exploration, and infrastructure development. Supporters credit him with modernizing the nation, including the discovery of oil reserves in the Albertine Graben, which Museveni has touted as a game-changer for Uganda's economy. However, critics argue that Museveni's rule has devolved into authoritarianism. Constitutional amendments in 2005 removed presidential term limits, and in 2017, age restrictions were lifted to allow him to run indefinitely. This 2026 election marks his 7th term, bringing his total tenure to at least 45 years if completed, potentially the longest in the Mole region's history. Museveni's campaigns have often emphasized continuity, security, and economic progress, with slogans like "protecting the gains" resonating among rural voters and NRM loyalists. The election build-up was fraught with controversy. Museveni's son, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, has been increasingly visible in politics, fueling speculation about a dynastic succession. Opposition figures, including Bobi Wine, faced arrests, harassment, and restrictions on campaigning. The government justified an internet shutdown as necessary to curb misinformation, but observers decried it as a tool to stifle dissent. The opposition's defiance: Bobi Wine rejects results. Bobi Wine, the 43-year-old musician turned politician, emerged as Museveni's primary challenger, representing a generational shift, drawing massive crowds, particularly among urban youth frustrated by unemployment, corruption, and inequality. Wine's campaign promised radical change under the banner of "A New Uganda Now." His national unity platform gained traction in Buganda and other opposition strongholds, but preliminary results showed him trailing far behind. Immediately, Wine rejected the results as fake and accused the regime of ballot stuffing, abductions of polling agents, and biometric voter verification failures in opposition areas. In a statement from an undisclosed location after reports of a military raid on his home, Wine urged Ugandans to peacefully protest until the rightful results are announced. Protests erupted in Kampala and other cities, with at least 7 demonstrators killed in clashes with security forces between January 15 and 16. Wine supporters on social media platforms like X, formerly Twitter, echoed his sentiments with posts decrying the election as rigged. One user lamented, "Just like the rigged elections organized by Paul Biya of Cameroon in October 2025, the Museveni regime in Uganda today, January 17, 2026, wins another election with the Election Commission unable to prove with data voting station by place voting station." Others predicted unrest, drawing parallels to past African leaders like Robert Mugabe. Smaller opposition candidates such as Nandala Mafabi of the Forum for Democratic Change (FDC) with 1.88% and Mugisha Muntu of the Alliance for National Transformation (ANTATS) with 0.53% trailed significantly. Some opposition voices, like ANT supporters, expressed skepticism about the electoral process itself, arguing that true change requires mass mobilization beyond the ballot box. Celebrations and divisions, reactions on the ground. In contrast, Museveni's victory sparked jubilation among NRM supporters. Crowds gathered in downtown Kampala, waving yellow flags. Imagine abrate and people who experience of and be in 1665 Ibrade downtown Kampala, waving yellow flags experiences, peoples gathered in and chanting in celebration as provisional results showed Museveni leading with over 76% in early trilogies count. Posts on X captured the festive mood. Some Ugandans have started holding celebrations in group of office at downtown Kampala after the Electoral Commission released the provisional results where their favorite candidate President Museveni is leading with 76%. Congratulations, Savo. Thank you. Yet, the divide is stark. Urban areas where youth unemployment hovers around 70%, largely backed wine, while rural voters, benefiting from government programs like Operation Wealth Creation, remained loyal to Museveni. Analysts note that this election highlights Uganda's generational and urban-rural rift, with young people increasingly viewing Museveni as a relic of the past. From a regional perspective, South Sudan, Uganda's northern neighbor, watches closely. Museveni has been a key player in South Sudan's peace processes, including the 2018 revitalized agreement. His continued leadership could stabilize bilateral relations, particularly in trade and refugee management, but ongoing instability in Uganda risks spillover effects. International scrutiny and implications. The international community has expressed concern over the election's conduct. The focus has been on the contested poll and contentious election campaign. The European Union and United States have called for investigations into fraud allegations, with some observers barred from monitoring. Attention is also shifting to Museveni's succession, amid rumors of grooming his son. Economically, Museveni's win promises continuity in oil development, with production expected to start soon. However, persistent corruption scandals, such as those involving iron sheet distributions, could erode investor confidence. Politically, the disputed results may fuel unrest, as seen in post-2021 protests. Experts warn that without reforms, Uganda risks deeper polarization. Looking ahead, a nation at a crossroads. As Museveni prepares for inauguration, Uganda stands at a crossroads. His supporters see a visionary leader safeguarding progress, while detractors view him as an autocrat clinging to power. Bobi Wine's call for protests could escalate tensions, but with the military firmly behind Museveni, change through the streets seems unlikely without broader organization. In the words of one ex-user reflecting on the opposition strategy, we cannot continue treating elections as the silver bullet to end a 40-year regime. Instead, we should use the electoral process to educate, mobilize, and empower Uganda. What happened to Bobi Wine, the detention at his home, and last night's dramatic events by Juba Global News Network, JubaGlobal.com. January 17, 2026, in the volatile aftermath of Uganda's January 15, 2026, general election widely disputed and conducted under a nationwide internet blackout, opposition leader Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, popularly known as Bobi Wine, has become the focal point of intense security measures and conflicting reports. The president of the National Unity Platform (NUP), and longtime challenger to President Yoweri Museveni faced what and his party described as house arrest, a military raid, and a night of high drama that ended with his escape while his family remained confined. The house arrest begins January 15 to 16, 2026, immediately after Bobi Wine cast his vote on Election Day, Thursday, January 15. Security forces, primarily military, used, and police deployed heavily around his residence in Majerere near Kampala. Wine himself posted on X, formerly Twitter, that soldiers surrounded his home to place him under effective house arrest, preventing anyone from entering or leaving. He framed the move as a sign of regime fear rather than strength, stating this because they are afraid of the people's reaction after stealing their next term. Quote, his party, the NUP, confirmed the siege, describing it as a deliberate effort to isolate the opposition leader amid allegations of widespread electoral malpractice, including ballot stuffing and intimidation. No formal charges were announced, and the action appeared preventive, aimed at limiting Wine's ability to mobilize supporters or challenge early results showing Museveni in a commanding lead. Throughout Friday, January 16, the situation escalated. Wine remained confined with his wife Barbara Tungo Kyagulanyi and other family members. The nationwide internet shutdown imposed days earlier severely restricted communication, fueling speculation and preventing independent verification of events at the compound. Last night's raid, January 16 into 17, 2026, late Friday night into early Saturday, January 16-17, the most dramatic chapter unfolded. According to Bobi Wine's subsequent statements, in NUP accounts, security forces including police and unidentified individuals, allegedly military, raided the home. They reportedly cut electricity, disabled CCTV cameras, scaled the perimeter wall using ladders, and used a helicopter to illuminate the compound and hover overhead. Wine claimed the raid aimed to abduct or neutralize him amid growing protests and rejection of provisional results. His party initially announced on X that Bobi Wine had been forcibly taken from his residence by an army helicopter and flown to an unknown location. This sparked widespread alarm, with fears of enforced disappearance, or worse, given Uganda's history of opposition harassment. However, in a video statement released early Saturday morning, January 17, Bobi Wine appeared to clarify and contradict parts of the abduction narrative. He confirmed he had managed to escape the raid and was no longer at home. His wife, children, and other family members remained under house arrest at the residence. He described the overnight commotion as intense, but denied being forcibly flown away, attributing earlier abduction reports to restricted access and neighbor misinterpretations. Wine reiterated his complete rejection of the election results, citing ballot stuffing, military interference, detention of NUP leaders and polling agents, and other irregularities. Ugandan authorities pushed back strongly. The Uganda People's Defense Forces, UPDF, denied any process abduction, calling the claims baseless and unfounded and designed to incite violence. Police described Wine as merely restricted to his home for security reasons, not under formal arrest. No official confirmation of his current whereabouts has been provided by the government, and the internet blackout continued to hamper independent reporting. Broader context and implications. These events occur against the backdrop of a highly contentious election. Results announced by the Electoral Commission showed Museveni with a landslide victory around 70-71%, while Wine trailed far behind around 19-21. The campaign and voting period were marred by violence, reports of at least 10 deaths, arrests, intimidation, and the internet shutdown. Wine and the NUP have called for protests and urged Ugandans to reject the fake results, while Museveni's government maintains the process was free and fair. Bobi Wine's situation, house arrest followed by a raid, disputed escape, and family still confined, highlights the intense pressure opposition figures face in Uganda. Whether this marks a temporary escalation or signals deeper repression remains to be seen as the country awaits official final results and potential unrest. Juba Global News Network will continue monitoring developments. For updates, visit jubaglobal.com. Sources include Al Jazeera, Reuters, The New York Times, BBC, RFI, and statements from Bobi Wine and the Nut. Stay informed.
Fellow Ugandans, my name is Chagulanyi Sentamu Robert, also known as Bobi Wine. Today is Saturday, the 17th of January 2026, and the time is 9 a.m. in the morning. My wife and I have been under house arrest since the 15th of January when we had elections, and yesterday our house was raided by some police officers together with a number of other unknown individuals in plain clothes. They used ladders to climb over our fence. They cut off our electricity, they cut off our cameras, and they were being assisted by a helicopter that was hovering in the sky of our compound and providing them light as they were doing what they were doing. Amidst that raid, I was able to use my skills and escape my house. But I know they're looking for me. But even if they succeed and get me and do whatever, I want to say this to you, fellow Ugandans. First and foremost, we reject whatever is being declared by Mr. Byabakama, because those so-called results that they're declaring are fake and they don't in any way reflect what happened at the polling stations or what is at the declaration forms. And therefore, those results, the so-called results, are fake. After arresting almost all our agents, after ballot stuffing, and after shutting off the internet, the regime is trying to once again rig the elections. What happened in the polling station is a completely different story, and we demand that the internet be restored and the rightful declaration forms and tally sheets from the districts are uploaded on the internet so that the people of Uganda can see the rightful results in transparency. We also demand that they hold whatever declaration is going on until the internet is restored and until the people of Uganda can follow up on the results in transparency. We are glad that there are protests, and we encourage the people of Uganda to resist any rigging and to resist any effort of subduing their voice. We also want to call upon the media, which has deliberately ignored what is happening in the country. There are widespread protests across the country, and there's widespread arrests and people are being killed. For example, in Butambala, at the house of Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi, 10 people were shot and killed in one house by the police. In Waise, 4 people have been shot dead. In Mukono, 4 people were shot dead. In Machinge, we have information that 3 people were shot dead. And in Kayonga and Luwero, we are yet to get the statistics of the people that have been killed and what exactly is happening. We want to firmly call upon the people of Uganda to reject these fake results that are being read at Ruboa by Mr. Byabakama and his Electoral Commission, and we want to call upon the people of Uganda to non-violently protest and reject any effort to subvert their voice and demand that the rightful results are announced. I thank you for God.
Here is a concise summary of the 15 most important global developments reported today. 1. Iran, after weeks of massive protests that escalated into calls for regime change, the streets have fallen into an uneasy calm following a brutal crackdown. Thousands reportedly killed, tens of thousands arrested, hospitals targeted, week-long internet blackout. Trump first threatened intervention, then praised Iran for reportedly canceling mass hangings of over 800 detainees. Venezuela, the Trump administration is advancing the post-Maduro transition after U.S. While a senior cleric demanded death penalties and issued threats against the U.S. to plays Majek, forces captured and extradited Nicolas Maduro. Opposition leader Maria Corina Machado presented her Nobel Peace Prize medal to Trump at the White House. Interim leader Delcy Rodriguez has begun releasing prisoners, opening oil fields to U.S. companies, and accepting deported migrants. 3. Gaza. Phase 2 of President Trump's Gaza ceasefire plan has officially begun. A new 15-member Palestinian Technocratic Committee will govern daily affairs. Hamas faces full disarmament demands, threatening challenges, and large-scale reconstruction of homes, hospitals, and schools is set to start, though deep mistrust and violations persist. 4. U.S. Iran tensions. Tensions peaked over Iran's protest crackdown, with Trump threatening military action, locked and loaded, then shifting to praise after reported cancellation of mass executions. Hardliners inside Iran remain defiant, demanding executions, and labeling protesters Trump's soldiers. 5. Greenland. Sovereignty and resource competition over Greenland has intensified. Trump threatened 100% tariffs on Denmark and uncooperative European nations as Germany, France, Norway, Sweden, and China conduct more reconnaissance and research missions. Denmark insists Greenland is not for sale. 6. Canada-China trade. Prime Minister Mark Carney announced Canada is dropping its 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles in exchange for lower Chinese tariffs on Canadian farm products, signaling a strategic pivot toward closer ties with Beijing. 7. South Korea. Former President Yoon Suk-yeol was sentenced to 5 years in prison in the first major verdict from trials related to his 2024 martial law declaration. 8. Myanmar. Landmark genocide hearings against Myanmar continue at the International Court of Justice over the military's 2017 actions against the Rohingya. 9. Egypt, Ethiopia. President Trump offered direct U.S. mediation in the long-running Nile River water rights dispute between Egypt and Ethiopia. 10. Syria. President Ahmed al-Shara issued a decree restoring citizenship to many Kurds and recognizing Kurdish language rights for the first time. 11. Ukraine. A new poll shows over half of Ukrainians reject any territorial concessions, even for history's security guarantees, as Russia-Ukraine peace talks remain stalled. 12. Global markets. The World Economic Forum highlights ongoing high uncertainty in technology and AI stocks despite strong equity fund inflows. 13. Pakistan. Backed by China, Pakistan is expanding its military presence across the Arab world, potentially shifting regional power balances and alarming India. 14. Biodiversity. The UN Global Biodiversity Treaty officially entered into force, with the goal of protecting 30% of the world's oceans by 2030. 15. Davos. Ahead of the World Economic Forum meeting starting January 19, leaders note a marked decline in the spirit of dialogue and international cooperation amid rising geopolitical fractures. Quick takeaway: the world today is defined by authoritarian crackdowns, Iran, bold U.S. transitional experiments, Venezuela, Gaza, renewed great power resource competition, Greenland, critical minerals, fragile diplomatic opening, Syria, Kurds, Nile mediation, and persistent multilateral strain, biodiversity treaty versus declining global trust. Tensions are high, but tactical pauses and back-channel deals are keeping several flashpoints from immediate explosion for now. And I am Jasmine. For full articles, analysis, photos, and continuing updates on any of these stories, visit JubaGlobal.com. Stay informed. Juba Global News.
I got you. You gotta get low. Lean, there you go. Claim on hot. När jag får det, jag får 23 stycken här.
to keep away from the landing zone for the other guy, because the snowmobile are rolling a lot. Okay, easy lane.